Well, thank you for letting us know. All right. I'm going to start our little live here. Perfect. Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wake the Fuck Up Wednesday. It is so gorgeous here today. I don't know where you all are at. Tell me where you're at. Where are you coming in from? Are you coming in from Alaska? Are you coming in from California, New York, Australia? Some of y'all's are staying up late. Europe, let me know. Oh yeah, we have a South Africa dam right on. I think it's like exactly 12 hours different there. Yeah. Awesome. Santa Barbara, Hawaii, aloha. Yeah, well, welcome everyone. So today we are going to jam on how to make a scene like a naughty Buddha. I feel like when I think Buddhism was increasing in popularity, Thich Nhat Hanh was one of the teachers that really got people, to be curious because he's such a gentle teacher and, teaches a lot about compassion. And he's so poetic and lovely in the way that he speaks. But some people were frustrated because they were interpreting things like, oh, so this means that as Buddhists, and because everything's empty, and because all of this is created by our mind, then we don't need to take action, right? We don't need to get upset about injustices because in the end it's karma and all of this. And there then became a movement, right, about activism within Buddhism, because I don't know how many of you have heard of the analogy, like when someone is enlightened, they have one foot in ultimate reality and one foot in relative reality, which is like what we all live in, like in this world where shit hurts, things upset us. There are challenging situations, all of that, right? So when we think about, okay, how can I show up and meet this situation um, with its energetic equal, right? And stay in integrity, like not generate hate to deal with it, not betray my values because of it, right? Because so many people feel like to make change in the world, to address a sexist comment, to call in someone about a racist comment they make, like we need to respond with hate because anger feels empowering, right? It feels so much more energetic than sadness and powerlessness, right? But we don't need that. So yeah, it's sort of like it does work. Anger and this kind of aggression does give us that level of energy, right? But it doesn't. Oh, everybody's telling me here that in the Insta it's not going. Hold on. But it's like out of integrity, right? It's out of integrity with how we want to show up. So we need to balance, our desire for social change with, our understanding of how things are and with karma and emptiness and the power of our thoughts to create things with what motivates us to take action, right? And not having it just be driven from anger or hate or fear. So the example I give in the pod that's going to drop tomorrow is I was at a dinner. You may have heard me tell the story before. Was at a fancy dinner. My boyfriend at the time had interviewed with this really well-respected group. It was a very competitive application process, and he was accepted. And so we were having this celebratory dinner, and I was supposed to meet everybody in the group and their partners, their wives, and I was supposed to make nice and yada yada. And then we just celebrate this thing. So I'm hanging out, I'm telling this story about an avalanche in the Himalayas. And um, I kind of hear from the back, like, well, I don't understand why Black people are complaining about slavery anyway. It's been over for 200 years. So I think it's time to get over it and stop blaming us. And so I'm like, let's just pretend this is my wine glass. Hey, y'all. So let's just pretend this is my wine glass, which is not far from the truth. I like to drink liquids. All right. And then so I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. What was that? And he's like, oh, I was just saying how slavery ended 200 years ago and people shouldn't make a big deal about it anymore. And I'm like, oh, and then I'm like, hold up. Right? I was like getting ready. And I was like, actually, segregation only ended in 1964 legally. That's less than 40 years ago at the time, right? And I take another sip of wine and I'm waiting, and there's like nothing. There's like no reaction. Like, oh, I didn't think of it that way. And then so I'm waiting, and I'm not having this bitchy attitude either. Okay. Because what I have learned is I can't just show up and start attacking someone. Uh, like that usually puts people into fight or flight, and they're not open to hearing anything you say, right? So anyway, there's this awkward silence. There's this, people are kind of laughing, and I'm like nervously, not laughing at me, but just kind of like, is this like, can we just talk about something else? And I was like, institutionalized racism and de facto segregation is still happening. Like when we hire, in school segregation, residential segregation due to things like white flight. I'm like, so when we look at this, it's all very real and still happening right now. So why people are still upset about it totally makes sense to me. I was like, but I can get how it feels uncomfortable. What do you think of that? And I'm being like pretty opening, like, hey, we can have a conversation. Now, I wrote about this in an article for Elephant Journal. And one of the comments I got, which I totally get, was someone saying, like, I'm not sure I would have done that in front of other people. When we're thinking about someone feeling attacked, like I maybe would have talked to him later as an aside. And here's where my logic went in that situation. He was talking about how he didn't think Black people should be complaining anymore because slavery ended 200 years ago. And people were nodding in agreement. So me pulling him aside, like, isn't impacting everyone that was involved. I was like, oh, he's not the only one that needs to hear this, right? So and you do have to be in a skillful place to kind of read, is this of benefit? This is what I always ask, right? If I'm going to make a scene, what is my intention? What is my motivation? Is it ego driven? Like, I don't want to look like the badass here or whatever. But like, what is the intention? And we're still going to fuck up even if we have good intentions, right? But that's a good place to check it. So my intention was like, I would like to educate and put some facts out there, right? And I want to do it in a way that they see I'm nice, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, like, oh, maybe you're not aware of these facts. I wasn't like, hey man, what the fuck? You're the one with all the privilege. No wonder you think that shit, right? It was like, what is my intention and how am I going to approach this? And so anyway, I'm going to come back around to that. So he says, he goes, well, thank you for letting me know. And I didn't think about that part. It's always nice to learn something new. I'm sorry if that offended you. Now, he's the owner of the company. And, then I'm just kind of looking, I'm like, well, that's really patronizing and so polite and so lacking in curiosity about how to grow and how to learn in this situation, right? But I did my part. And I'm like, yeah, it can be hard to remember that it's the land of the free for just a few, especially when you're one of those, right? But maybe it'll be easier to remember now. And I know you're a good guy and we'll do the right thing. So I'll leave it at that. Now, I don't know if that actually changed his mind. I don't know. But my hope is that, I planted some seeds, whether they get watered or not. I have no idea. Right. But I want to speak up, speak out, make a scene, and stay in integrity and not have it driven by anger or hate. Right. And from that place, we can more access our wise mind and apply it to a situation that can be very challenging and uncomfortable, right? Now, what I do want to speak to is usually when we're in that situation, we're in like fight, flight, or freeze, right? So we get into this place of like, oh shit, either like, I'm pissed, I'm going to take this person on, or we're like, if like, let's say someone makes a sexist remark, or I could have gotten really triggered by his like, I'm sorry that offended you, right? I could have been like, boom, 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 like my heart really freaking out. Well, we go into fight, flight, or freeze, right? This is a stress response, fight, flight, or freeze. Here, let me draw this out for y'all. So we have, can you see that? Not sure, but anyway, so we have like fight, flight, freeze. A business coach I work with, Melanie Childer, she also added in fawn, Fawn, which I really like because I think especially many women fall into that. So, we're like either fight, like, come on, bring it on. I got you. Like, I'm going to take you down, flight. I'm just going to dive into my big ass glass of wine here. Hello. Or freeze. I don't know what the fuck to do or say, right? Or fawn, people pleasing. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to offend you, right? So this is actually a stress response, right? We have a stressor, we have an uncomfortable situation, and that's what happens. We go into one of these modes, right? So one of the key ways to make a scene and stay in integrity is to be able to take yourself out of this, right? Taking yourself out of what I see most women do is the freeze. They shut down. Like they get an internet troll, or they have someone make a sexist comment, or someone makes a racist comment to them, to a BIPOC woman, right? And then it's just like, oh, fuck. And then they shut down and want to run, right? What we can learn is how to stay present and how to get out of this. So you've heard me talk many times about how self-compassion practice takes us out of that. You can go find one of the past Wake the Fuck Up Wednesdays about that. I've got a recent podcast about self-compassion too, but self-compassion practice actually takes us out of this and we go, okay, this is hard right now. I'm suffering right now. This is a bit challenging, right? When we are nurturing ourselves, when we're acknowledging that we're suffering and stress, like then it's like someone noticed. Okay. And then self-compassion practice includes soothing touch, kind words. Like, you can hold your hand in your lap. You could put your hand on your heart and deep breath. Like, it's okay. You got this. This is stressful, but you got this, right? We can talk to ourselves like that instead of what the fuck am I going to do? Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. Then we can flip the table so that the attention is off of us in the moment, right? So in my example that I gave, I was not here. I went there, right? Our spiritual practice and mind training doesn't mean we never experience stress or like always have a perfect response. We go there and we can notice it and come out of it more effectively the more we practice. That's what's brilliant about it. Remember the example I give with the Dalai Lama. Like people will say like, well, so you don't feel anger anymore because you've been practicing feelings? Like, of course I feel anger. Yes, I feel anger, but I recognize it. It arises and it goes, right? We have a more effective approach to these situations. We can access our wise mind more of the time, right? Not 100% of the time, more of the time. So many people, like, you know, I obviously have friends that aren't my clients, right? But they will like read an article or something. And I'm just like hanging out with my friends, like, you know, shooting the shit. And I'll be like, fucking my husband, yada, yada, yada. And then they'll be like, well, you know, you wrote that article. And I'm like, bitch, I know I wrote the article. Let me be human for a minute. Right? It's like this is like who I am. Like, and this is human. It's a human experience to have these emotions arise and then to be able to notice them and let it go. So I just want you to know, as you do this work, as you do the practice, as you train your mind, it doesn't mean you're not going to fall into patterns of complaining or of being triggered or of all this stuff. But you recognize it, you're mindful when it happens, and you could bring it back to wise mind more effectively, right? Okay, so I do believe that humans are doing they're doing what they think is right in the moment with the resources they have. And that includes their ability to empathize, to seek truth, a willingness to be wrong and not feel threatened by being wrong, a curiosity about how their actions impact others. Those are skills and tools that many people don't have to draw on. And if you don't have those tools, your response is going to be very different, right? So, turning the tables. So one of the things is we can respond with a question. So if someone says something to us that's very triggering, right? Something racist, if you're a BIPOC, something sexist, something, you know, or a very inappropriate comment, like this person at the dinner I was telling you about who makes this racist comment. And then I'm like, well, hold on. We can make a scene and do that in integrity by coming to our center, recognizing our intent. But if it's directed at us, we get out of the stress response with our self-compassion practice, and we can move the attention back to the other person. Because right now, if all eyes are on us, someone just asked us a question or made a comment, we're like, right? We cannot access our wise mind from that. We are here. We're going to like show up in a way that we're not proud of, either by shutting down, and later we're going to be like, fuck, I should have said something, right? Or we're going to come at it with anger or hate or fear, and that's not where we want to be either, right? Remember the story I told of Ram Dass? He has a picture of Trump on his altar, and he's like, he prays for him and says, like, I see you for your soul and not your karma. He loves him. Like, I want to be able to have that kind of love and hold that space and have people feel that love from me and question and be challenged, right? So what you can do if someone is coming at you, right, you can center yourself and deflect for a minute by asking a question in response. Like, in this situation, like I was saying, I was out of the fight, flight, freeze. But if I wasn't, if I was panicking in the moment, to buy myself some time, I would have said something like, oh, so what do you think about the racist practices that are still going on today? What that does is it takes the energy off of us and this boom, 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 and then puts it back to the other person, right? Someone makes a sexist comment to you. Oh, how would you feel if someone said that to your mother? How would you feel if someone said that to your sister? Question, back at the other person, attention off, time to get out of fight, flight, or freeze, time to access your wise mind, right? So that's just the tip. I'm going to be giving more tips like that. If you go to naughtybuddhist.com, I was going to name my podcast Naughty Buddhist, which I fucking love. I didn't do it because after talking to a lot of Buddhist teachers of mine, they were like, you're a nurse and you're a woman. Like, it's like, do it, but you're going to deal with a lot of sexist comments. And I was like, yeah, I don't really want that bandwidth, but I kept the name for other uses like this course. So I'm going to be teaching a free masterclass on how to access your power in uncomfortable situations so that you can show up with more integrity instead of being in this stress response. Okay, so naughtybuddhist.com, get on that list. I'm going to be teaching the masterclass in June. If you can't make it, just put your name on there because you'll get the replay. Okay, it's going to be awesome. It's free. It's free. Just FYI, it's free. So, in terms of, you know, how, like, where do we go from here? Like, you're going to learn those skills to take you out of here. I really want you to ask yourself, like, why am I getting so triggered by this? Because we often want the other person to be silenced as well, right? And we want to be in integrity about that, right? We want to be in integrity, like, wait, I don't want to be shut down in silence. I don't want that other person to be shut down in silence. So we can also come from a place of curiosity, right? Like, I am so curious. Tell me about how you arrived at that. You know, when I was a nurse practitioner in Southern Oregon, I was taking a patient down for an MRI. And I would take lots of patients to this MRI, and I'd have like an hour to hang out with the MRI tech while the MRI was getting done. And the MRI tech was super religious, like a born again Christian, and I'm Buddhist, right? So we would, shoot the shit. I knew he liked me. He's a nice guy. I liked him. And then one of my patients, though, was a gay man who had AIDS, and he's going into the MRI, and the MRI tech's like, oh, well, that's what happens. That's what happens when you go against the word of God. And I was like, Howie, like, this is a nice guy. Like, I shouldn't have said that, but anyway, like, how can you say that about this, right? And he's like, oh, well, it's just black and white. It's in the Bible. And I'm like, but what about me? Like, you like me. Do you think I'm going to go to hell? And he's like, yeah, I'm sorry. And so we had this conversation back and forth about, like, to me, it doesn't make sense though. Like, I'm so curious. So, like, you think that someone in a village somewhere, like, who just hears about it in passing from a missionary and chooses not to believe, like, they're going to go to hell. And he's like, yeah. And I was like, wow, that just doesn't make sense to me. And so, but we had a dialogue, right? Curiosity. And he was asking me some questions. I was the more curious one. And it's like, hey, we don't have to convince the other person, but we can get curious. We can plant seeds. We can call out something that seems like an untruth, right? Or a cognitive error that they're making in logic. We can say, hey, well, this is what I see. Whether they see it or not, we have no control of. But I do believe we have a duty to discuss these things, to make a scene, to make people uncomfortable. So what I want to leave you with is really think about, who are you willing to, oh, hey, Prem, namaste from Nepal. I really want you to think about, who are you willing to disappoint, right, in order to be true to yourself? Sometimes when we make a scene, we're going to disappoint people. Like, I'm sure I disappointed all those people that thought they were just going to nod in agreement about a racist comment and go on to have a nice dinner, right? And then I made things uncomfortable for a bit. My boyfriend at the time, by the way, also thought it was really uncomfortable. And while I could tell intellectually, he was like, oh, I can see why you said that. Like, I could tell he was really uncomfortable with it, and he kind of hoped it wouldn't happen again. Did I break up with him that night? No, of course not. No. Back then I would beat a relationship to death before breaking up with someone. But it was the start. It was the sign, right? I disappointed people to stay true to myself. I could sleep better at night. So I think if people believe that, if you're Buddhist, or if have these understandings of karma and of emptiness and of ultimate reality, that it doesn't, that you don't have to be concerned with people who are underserved or who are oppressed, because it's karma or something. And that to me is absolutely missing the point. There is one foot in ultimate reality, one foot in relative reality. Racism, patriarchy, all of those things are real. The structure here is real. There's structures that can change, institutions that can change, right? To make people's life in this relative reality have less suffering. So we have a duty to act from compassion, compassionate action, right? To say something. And, it's said, that the two wings of a bird are compassion and wisdom. You need both. You can't go out there just giving your money away to everybody who needs it. You'll go broke and then you'll be one of those people begging for money, right? You can't call out someone in a way that they're going to shut down, because that's not skillful either. You have to have the wisdom to understand how to do it, how to act, and from a compassionate heart, balanced by the wisdom to know what is most skillful at the time. Because remember, when we're in the stress response, we're not going to access our most wise mind. Okay. All right. So I want you to, oh, let me see. Did someone ask a question here? Oh, yeah. Texas. We have someone from Texas. Awesome. Let me know if you have any questions. But, go to Naughty Buddhist, naughtybuddhist.com. That's going to be where my free training is going to be on getting out of this stress response so you can come from a place of power and act from your power and your truth and stay in integrity so that it comes from a place of love and compassion too. Okay? Okay, y'all. Awesome. Thank you for coming. Sending so much love to you. All right. Now I'm going to sign out from the 4 different places I have to log in on. All right. Thank you for coming. Bye.